I got to get some songs. I said, probably should send me a few songs. He goes, yeah. And I should probably tell you who this is for.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 510. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Michael Moore. How are you, sir? Or Michael Jerome. I mean, it's duality problem. Like I'm Brandon, Brando, Michael Jerome, I guess is how you want to be introduced, I should say.
Well, it kind of, that's one of those things when we were kids. We were like, what's our stage name going to be? And I thought it was ridiculous, but my middle name is Jerome. So I chose Michael Jerome when we were kids and just kind of stayed that way. But full name, Michael Jerome Moore. And I let people just kind of decide what they wanted.
Before we get going, I haven't thought about this in a while, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say it because I like hearing those sort of stories of how you come up with the stage name. Obviously, dealing with somebody like Slash, and with the
Right.
Guns N' Roses theme, Axl Rose, it's come up quite often. I'm Brando, air quote Brandon in real life, and it just started in radio in college. I was Brando the Commando. I don't know. It was a heavy metal show. It was given to me. I'm like, all right, I guess. Once I became a professional, I wanted to change it, and just like you, middle name, okay? So Brandon Neal. Okay, okay. I looked up if there was a Brandon Neal, like just because I'm sure you may have looked that up because there's a Michael Moore, obviously, but Michael Jerome. He was a porn star, a gay Canadian porn star that did quite a few films. So I
I
figured
hope
maybe
so.
that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he was a lovely guy, but that's I didn't want any association. I don't know. I wanted to be my own person. So Brando stuck.
Brando stuck, and I think it's good. It's that's the way it should be. I did the same thing. But if you look up Michael Jerome on the internet, the first, back in the day when I'd look it up, I was like, let's see what comes up with Michael Jerome, and it would just be this tire screen would just pop up of inmates and
uh,
mugshots, and I'm just like, ouch.
oh,
But of course, I found out there were like several Michael Jerome musicians who happened to be percussionists and singer songwriters and stuff too. So I was like, I hope people put me in that camp more than the inmates.
well, we got the right Michael Jerome here. Michael Jerome, drums. You got me thinking of the inmates. I guess that's a weird
Whoa,
Freudian slip.
whoa!
Michael Jerome drums. If you go to his website, and you were just on tour with Better Than Ezra, right? Is that what you're coming off with?
Just on tour with Better Than Ezra. We keep going through the year periodically, but yeah, off and on. Usually with Better Than Ezra.
I mean, that's so cool. And before we get to, because I'm lucky enough to have seen you last summer with Slash. I'm currently wearing the Slash's Blues Ball shirt
Nice,
that I
yeah,
got at the show. I hope you get a cut of these. I don't know if
yeah.
that's
I well, I definitely do not. I
the.
did. I did get a T-shirt. I joined
Oh,
one. Yeah,
all right. At least you get a T-shirt out of it.
I got the T out of it.
So I do want to get into that at the show Pier 17 in New York City and Orgy of the Damned. Your brilliant work on that. But you know what? I want to sprinkle, and this is a good way to kick things off a little bit because I have a lot of listeners from all over that are excited for Michael Jerome to be on the podcast. So this is a good way, good question from Cast and Sunshine. Just basically, how did you get into drumming? Like, what drove you to pick up the sticks? Like, how did you just get on this path that you're on now?
you know, it, that's always a tough one. It's tough and easy. The easy thing is that I just was doing it when I was like 3 or 4 years old. It just kind of was a naturally inherent thing that was without thought. Um, Turning it into like becoming aware of it and turning it into something that I would decide to do with my life was the complicated bit, but naturally doing it. My mother, I tell this story, my mother was a music teacher. She was a classical pianist, and she had a thing in our back room had a piano, baby grand piano in it, and all of the stuff she needed to teach her classes. And one of the things back there was it was called rhythm sticks, and just a pair of sticks that you hand out to students, and then they click. You teach them to keep time and different rhythms. And I would take those sticks and at 3 or 4 years old and proceed to whack on my mother's baby grand piano keys, which were ivory at the time, and chip them away because I enjoyed the way the sound uh, would come back at me. I liked hearing the snap that it created. I liked hearing it was like slats that would flam and also produce a tone, a note with the mallet obviously hitting strings. And but I also knew that really freaked my mother out when she saw me doing that. And I remember hearing her scream from the kitchen, "Michael, stop!" And but the damage was done. But she got me a drum kit shortly thereafter, which I promptly destroyed. And then we just she just kept feeding it. I was really lucky to have a mom like her that where she was just like, well, he's clearly a drummer. I need to keep stepping up, and hopefully he'll stick with it.
I love hearing that again, especially because before we started recording, I told you I have my 2 year old Harrison Rex in the corner there, and he does have a drum set, but it's like a play school one that has sounds and stuff. But he likes picking up the drumsticks and doing it, and I certainly am not gonna. And my wife too. We do take him to like a music class where it's just you know free play, and there's people playing guitar, singing songs, just to be surrounded by music. And then they hear that your mom is like that, was like that as well. Uh, and I guess she knew that there was a viable career path because maybe some parents like, oh, I love that for that him, but maybe that's a hobby. I can't see
Right,
that
right.
being, doing it all these years later. But she, being a professional, I'm sure, I'm assuming she had the confidence that you could do it professionally.
I
Maybe not
remember.
at four, and maybe not at four, but at some point.
Maybe not at 4. I mean, I do remember the time that I mean, she fed the passions. It would be drums, and of course, like a lot of young boys, I went into everything. I went into every sport, and she played along with that. But I would always come back to drums, and I remember she had organs in what the garage that was kind of converted into a room for me, and the garage was filled with these different organs, and I would play for hours doing the different rhythms on the organ, from foxtrot, through the sambas, through the tangos and different tempos and everything. And I think it was at that time, I must have been about 10 years old, that she thought, well, maybe I think there's something here that I could possibly take out with me and I can work with. And I think I was about, between 10 or 12 years old is when she started recruiting me to go play everywhere from church to country clubs to nightclubs, jazz standard, doing this jazz standard run and of gigs with her on weekends. And I did that until I was 17 years old.
That's awesome to have that special time with your mom and to bond over that. That's pretty special. And I'd be remiss because all because of mom, I guess. And this is according to he has a. I'll give him a producer credit for this episode. Chris Mercer from Ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were on my radar. It's crazy. You would think with the GNR centric podcast, I'd run out of list of people I would want to talk to, but I haven't. And you've been on my list. But he's like, you know what? Because he got me. He's like, hit up Jimmy Nico. Spoke to Jimmy. Then he's like, you know what? Let's talk to the Michael next. I think he would do it. And he said, in my humble opinion, that Michael is one of the best drummers alive. So,
Oh, that Mercer.
and
Oh,
Jimmy sang your praises as well. I mean, it's not just Chris. I mean, do you hear that often? Are you because you come off very humble? I don't know how you view yourself as a drummer.
you know what? I mean, yeah, I've always, and maybe it was because of playing with my mom all those years. I definitely was exposed to stuff that most young kids aren't. Um, Maybe people like Sheila E., for
Mm.
example, so growing up in a family like that, being on stage at a very young age, and just knowing that that was her environment growing up. I was kind of lucky in that situation too. So never reached Sheila E's success, but I consider every opportunity that I've received, from playing with Jim and Necco and Hours back in the day. That was around 2006 or so, and to Slash. These were wonderful opportunities, and I just embrace it. When I have it, because they're moments in time. They start and they end, and so you got to enjoy every second while you got it. You know.
Yeah, I certainly am. It all everyone thing they say about becoming a dad, I'm seeing that all now, just every moment. I don't mean to digress and do that for a second,
Yeah.
but I will. It gives me a good opportunity to go back to the questions you mentioned. Sheila E, who I don't know how one of those people I pinched myself that I actually got some time with her on the podcast. She has like a weird 6 degrees of what I call Guns N' Roses bacon to Hollywood Rose. If you people want to check out my back catalog, it's strange.
Nice.
But this is a question from Alex. Who is your favorite Motown drummer, and that you specifically killed it on Papa was a Rolling Stone on Orgy of the Damned, and and killing it
Wow.
live. So, do you have a favorite Motown drummer?
I don't. They're all, I mean, no, I
Okay.
have to say no, no way. Because to me, that growing up, they were like, very distinct, but Motown was a sound, and every one of those drummers brought, you know, what was necessary, and the vibe and the sound. They projected the sound. They're my top. They're like, I always put drummers like them in the same category of my favorites. And why is because they cater to the songs. We know about them being the powerhouses that they are because of what they did to support the song.
Yeah,
We know them because of the songs.
yeah. That's what makes for a good drummer, and it got me thinking about parents. Shout out to my dad, who it's actually coming up on the anniversary, 12 years since his passing, but he's the one that got me into Motown and Stax Records, and
Yeah.
I don't now I want to can't wait to pass that down because that's not in the culture as much as I believe that it should be. The because the old days. Now I'm coming off like the Abraham Simpson, Grandpa Simpson meme too often, shaking at the cloud. Music wasn't like it used to be, and I'm talking about music even before my time. That actually another good the question. I want to go back to Facebook. This is from Satya. He saw you twice in the past year. First with Slash's
Hmm.
Blues Ball last August, and then in February, with Better Than Ezra, both in Atlanta. So, as a drummer, he would like to know how you prepared for both tours and if there were any differences in your drum setup.
Okay, good question. Well, they're both very different approaches with as it pertains to rehearsal, and uh, setups are a bit similar. I have a bit more nuanced noisemakers with Slash, and I kind of just took the full Monty out with Slash with my old Gretsch kit that I had, just because there was more room to play, and a pretty diverse catalog to try to reinvent, you know, and to represent on the stage with all the different tracks. And you know I was able to have fun in the studio with Slash creating that stuff. So I decided to just move all of that stuff to the live stage as well. So that's kind of how that worked. And it was just a full, what was it, a 6 piece I think I took out, two snares, rack, two floors, um, 26 inch, I'm sorry, 24-inch kick. It's kind of shallow, 24 by 16. And whereas with BTE, um, it's slightly less, less on the noisemakers with the cymbals. Like with Slash, I would stack cymbals, to the far right. I tend to put most of my cymbals to the far right. But with Slash, I actually had some balance with cymbals stacks right and left. With BTE, it's just kind of a little bit more standard with rack floor, two floors, rack. And actually, I adopted that setup from Travis McNabb, who, when he left BTE and went to, and joined Sugarland in Nashville, I just adopted his setup with that. So that normally wouldn't be my setup or hadn't been, but I wanted to make this transition. And I always appreciate the challenge of playing a setup that I don't normally play. And so I kind of went with Travis McNabb's setup with BTE and kept it.
Since you're so versatile in different setups and different styles of music, that's, I guess it lends itself to Slash because even though he's known for blues, rock, he's collaborated with them all. So I'm just curious how that lent itself. How did you first meet Slash? I guess how did that story start? The being becoming part of Slash's Blues Ball, which I really hope continues uh,
Yeah,
for summers to come for Serpent Festival.
I do too. I'm with you. Um, you know, we all do something where our collective field of interest is aware of us. Like you're doing podcasts and people, of other people doing the same thing and they know about you. They know about your show. Um, we just keep doing what we're doing and we do the best we can when we get the opportunity to do it. And hopefully it gets somebody's attention, you know. Um, that's happened. I've been lucky enough to have that happen throughout my life, and people will go, "Hey, we'll call Michael Jerome." And so I got a call. I happened to be ironically, working on a blues record with
Mm.
a woman named Irene Locke over in Sardinia, and killer blues singer songwriter. And I was working on that, and Mike Klink, producer, gives me a call, and um, I see this text on my phone, and I was getting a lot of spam text at the time, and
Mm.
so
Yeah.
I kind of thought it was spam at first.
I've been there. I'm telling you. I feel like I've offended some people. I'm like, who are you? What is this?
I mean, it was like that, and then I finally was like, I looked at it again. It was like a day later, and I looked at it again, and I was like, oh, this person knows a little bit. It's kind of personal. I should at least call back and find out who this is in case somebody's got my information, all that stuff. And Mike picks up and I say, "Hi, I'm calling from Mike Klink." And he's like, "Oh, Michael, thanks for calling me back." He's super kind. And I was like, "Uh-oh, probably should have responded to this a little sooner."
Uh, huh.
But basically, to make a long story longer, he
Hmm.
filled me in on what was going on. And uh, eventually, when he said, would you be able to start tomorrow? And this was a call. We spoke on a Saturday, and he said, what's your schedule like over the next 2 weeks? And I said, this is perfect timing. I do have a couple of commitments I have to stick with. And he said, okay, I'll need to check with the guys on this, and I'll call you right back. At this point, I don't know who the guys are. I'm
Hmm.
not even quite sure what is happening and what it's about, but I knew I needed to get back to work. Um, so I went in and I thought, well, whoever that was, that sounded like a nice opportunity, like something cool, you know, um, that's probably it. I probably won't hear from that again. And then he called back like 30 minutes later and said, the guys are cool with it. We're going to be okay. Could you start tomorrow? And I still don't know who these guys are.
Huh.
And he's like, um, I'm like, sure, I can come by. I was figuring out in my head, I got to go get a kit out of storage. I got to figure out where I'm going. I got to get some songs. I said, probably should send me a few songs. He goes, yeah. And I should probably tell you who this is for.
You were just going on like a wing and a prayer because it was Mike Klink and you just were being trusting.
It was part of that, partly that, because, you know, it was partly that, but it was also because he said that a friend had referred me. So, and that I had come highly recommended by this person. So, normally when I hear things like that, I'm compelled to just say yes because whoever it was, I don't want to let them down.
Did you know who that friend was?
No, And it wasn't until I got to rehearsal the next day and we got through about 2 bars and I saw Slash smile and I saw the bass player smile and I thought, okay, maybe this is gonna, maybe I'm doing okay. And we finished the song and Slash went, well, that happened. And he was nodding his head and it felt pretty good. But I'd been in that position before. So, where it's working for the day, but, and we'll have fun jamming that day and they've made their choice already and they just wanted to check their options and see what they wanted to go with. But
Mm.
by the end of the day, the 5 tunes that I got soon became 10, and we ended up working on everything. And then 3 days later, we ended up in this at East West recording Orgy with cameras everywhere, and you know, I was just I had cameras up my butt and face. And I was like, oh, okay, so I don't get to like fuck up here. I don't get to like you know half-ass it. Not that I ever do, but you when you got a camera in your face, there's a little less. It's harder unless you're really super comfortable. It's harder to just continue to just be yourself 100%.
Mm.
Because I had to scratch my butt a little less.
I understand.
All those things. I had to like suck in my belly a lot more. All those things. But I finally did ask Slash. I think on the second day, or like, who did refer me, by the way? And he said Jimmy Vivino. Who
Oh,
I met with when I was touring with Richard Thompson. We did a Conan O'Brien show, and
okay.
he was a fan, and we spoke then, and then we got the chance to play together again down in Anaheim for a fundraiser for uh, crew and tech during the pandemic, and it was called the First In, Last Out Festival, Philo Festival for
Mm,
to help raise money for crew people who were out of work like the rest of us.
sure.
And we jammed with a buddy of mine named Tree Adams in our band. Here's a mouthful, Dag Nasterpus, uh, wonderful music composer. And we all just played together that day. And so that's what made it so cool. So I guess Jimmy we had already met, but that day we had actually had a chance to play together. And I guess he felt confident enough to hand over my name. So that's kind of how it happens in the business. You go do you, and
Mm.
people decide whether they remember or if it's cool or whatever, and they go, I think this would work perfectly. And Slash told me, he said, had been trying to get you the summer before, and I was like, what? He goes, yeah, apparently you didn't get the memo.
Oh man, you're just playing it cool, Michael. You're just playing it cool, playing hard to get.
No, they were all so super cool. I love Teddy. I love Johnny. Love
Mm,
Tash. We had a good. I think we had a good band. We have a good band, um, and I know that Slash is excited to do more things in the future, but you have to take those things as they come, when they come, and as they come, and hopefully we will. He's a busy man too.
he is so busy. That's why they have that South Park episode. Is Slash real because he's everywhere at
Yeah,
once. Oh,
yeah.
that's brilliant. Yeah, and Jimmy Vivino. I mean, I know him and Slash are friends, and because he's been done Conan a bunch of times, and that's so cool to get a recommendation from such a top tier musician like him, and then just how it's having it snowball like that. So when you walked into, was it a studio or the songs you played? What ended up being on Orgy of the Damned? What was like? I guess that first, like, whoa, okay, the guys became Slash. Like, when did? Do you remember that first? Oh, the guys became Slash. Like that moment.
I'm gonna cheat here again and just try to look at you know that original uh those first 5 tunes that I got. I'm kind of curious myself, what we actually started with. It was, because our first songs were Key to the Highway, Born Under a Bad Sign, Stormy Monday, and Oh Well. And I think we either I don't know if we started with Key or Bad. I think I want to say Born Under a Bad Sign we started with. Right? Freaking love that song. That's like it's such a heavyweight tune. And Albert King is just probably now all the three kings we like to say, BB Albert, um, but we just love him, and I think we hit that song, and it really was the first song after that at the end of that first song that I was just like, man, this feels good. And they had been practicing at a much lower volume than when I came in. I was just kind of, and I didn't really think I just chose a velocity that I thought fit um, the tune and my surroundings. But afterwards, they hadn't been playing at that volume, and I was like, they were like, "Whoa!" I wasn't. I'm so and because I just came in, and, Scott, and Slash was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Was that?" I was like, "Was I too loud?" He goes, "No, no, 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 no. I'm gonna turn up." And because you don't want to come in so loud that there's no room for dynamic. There's nowhere to go,
Right.
and you want a groove in this. Your job is to groove, keep some time. To best of your ability, but drive and let the band know where they need to land, sit, feel, because you're paying attention to everything. You're everybody, sometimes it's Slash, that's who's driving the ship, Other times it's Teddy. Other times, you find where it needs to sit, but it's my job to bridge the gap and hope be the glue to all of it and support it and be the foundation so that when people with some stuff takes off, like Mo Tucker used to say, after all that craziness would happen, she needed to be solid so that there was a solid place to land when it
Okay.
came back. Um, and so I think we all just knew after that first song that, this could definitely work, you know, let's do some more songs. Let's see what we got to get dynamically, what we need to go for. But it felt like in their minds that they had made a choice. They had already made their choice, and that I was going to work for for the live show, for the recording and the live show,
Hmm.
and whether I believed it myself or not, because I don't think I did, at the time. Another buddy
Okay.
of mine named Matt Chamberlain is also on the album. He's on the original song that's on the record. Uh,
Okay.
all the covers I'm on, but he's on the one, and I think it was
Oh,
probably
Metal Chestnut.
he's on Metal Chestnut
Okay.
because that was one of the gigs that I had was committed to, and so to keep
Oh.
working, And I when I found out that Matt Chamberlain was on it, I was like, oh well, you've got your
Hmm.
drummer because it's Matt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Hello.
That's so
Uh,
that's so cool. And you're mentioning so many names, and one of them, Teddy Andreadis, of course, Zigzag, and as a he's been on the podcast a couple times. Super nice guy, and it was my first time able to see him live, which was so special because I'm too young to have gone to the Illusion shows. So that was so special. I saw Tash years ago for the London Souls, I think at Brooklyn Bowl somewhere, and Johnny G. I mean, my guy. Hopefully, I get to interview him one day. But it's you went to a situation that was so unique. And it's more than just Slash, okay? You're going into where you have to be a studio musician. And I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was also presented that you were going to do this stuff live. So you had to do both. Because I could be wrong because I'm not a musician. There might be some that can only do one or the other, or better at one area than the other. Is that something fair to say? So
fair.
you
Yeah.
had to be well rounded. So that's pretty special. But like Born Under a Bad Sign, who ended up singing on that? finally in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Paul Rogers, also on this podcast. Him and his wife Cynthia were guests. I mean, and you all Brian Johnson. I mean, you guys got all these A-list people that are coming in. Dorothy is so badass.
Chris
So
Robinson.
Chris Robinson. So I mean, do you have any
Yeah.
highlight stories of like the guests that came in? Because we could be here all day if we went through all the guests, which maybe
Yeah.
part two, but just some highlights for you. You're like, wow, I get to
Yeah.
work with Slash and so and so.
That's right. That's right. Like you say, that's its own other show. Um,
Well, give me like what was like, or maybe like Brian Johnson, like what was or some studio. What give me a good studio story with another one of the guests that he had on there, whether it's Chris Robinson or what's something that really sticks out to you.
well, Beth Hart,
Beth
for
Hart, yeah,
probably my favorite. It's the most
another guest.
dynamic. It's the most unique. It's the most uh, emotional to me. They all bring uh, a level, like you say, 100% blood, sweat, and tears, passion, maturity, and you can tell they've all, you're listening to iconic voices that have been doing this a really long time, and they just know how to do where they want to put their voice and when and what they want to evoke when they do it. Um, but the performance, I had the opportunity to record live with Beth Hart, Gary Clark Jr.,
Okay.
and Iggy Pop. And
Oh
when we did
wow.
when we did Iggy came over and it was just me slash and Iggy, and so we were a three piece when we recorded that. Um, but the other we were full band, with Beth, and she came in and she'd been through a lot. I think she was traveling that day and wasn't feeling all that great, but came in and she put down this track that was just so even playing it live, even though she wasn't there, I just would hear her sing it and feel her singing it. And uh, it's such a journey, that particular song that she's singing. So she delivers it in such a storytelling way. It puts you in the place of the characters of the of the subject matter, and she also puts down one of the best screams in blues rock I've ever heard on that record, which I was just praying to God we didn't remove for any reason. I was just hoping that it
Uh,
stayed in there. Uh, uh, yeah, so yeah, that was one of my favorites. But like you say, when you have to pick one off that record, it's almost impossible. She just had
yeah.
the little bit. She's got that little bit of edge, and Iggy chose the tune he wanted to do and deliver, and it, who else could deliver it that way? I mean, my God. And everybody just was able to do this very special thing. And then when we went and did the one off in London for the British Awards over in London, that was with Brian Johnson. And, you realize that you're on stage with somebody that's been there, done that, and was, loving and caring and giving you, was full of stories and, just the best energy in the
Mm.
world, and he just wanted to hang out with him all day. And we stepped out there and we had a good time. I probably got felt the crash of jet lag a bit
Mm.
too early, but um, we had a good time, and it was great to do it. And I thought we killed it on the show. So
Oh, what? Yeah, no, that performance with Brian Johnson, I didn't expect that because what an all around singer he is, and he's known for, of course, the AC/DC voice, but he is just so talented. And I love Slash's, I'm paraphrasing something about like an interview. Why didn't you do it in Brian's voice? Then it becomes like an AC/DC song. It's just something else. So, uh,
right,
Slash as a producer must have been something to watch, right? And that must have been pretty. Oh, and before I lose it, did Iggy Pop wear a shirt? Yes or no? Was he wearing a shirt? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, you saw a rare sighting then.
He kept his clothes on.
Okay.
Hey, whether I
uh,
was disappointed or not is irrelevant.
no, fair, fair, fair. Oh,
Killed
and I do want to say, yeah, Beth Hart, who's been on the show, like, she's a special person.
it.
She's an
Yes.
inspiration, special person. But it is so cool because it's such a cool record and all these different songs and different voices from Iggy and so when it became like a live thing, and again, I don't know if you have any specific memories from. I think it was my second time at Pier 17 in New York City. My wife and I, we saw Ringo's All Star Band there, and it was going to be my son's first like rock show. He's been to Dave Matthews, but I don't really count that. Uh, I'm sorry, my wife is she's going to her 76th show next week, I think,
Oh
of Dave
wow.
Matthews. I know. So there's
Wow.
a picture of my son when he's like less than a year with giant headphones on at a Dave Matthews show. Anyway, I wanted to bring up the Slash, but we were really, really up close. Probably a bad idea. I'll save it. But I have my
Mm-hmm.
own memories. What do
Mm-hmm.
you have any memories of the New York City show on a rooftop? That's a pretty cool venue.
Well, it's beautiful. I know I'd never played there before, and I love the bridge right behind us. Like
Yeah.
what a setting, what a beautiful setting for any show. And yeah, that's where I met Dorothy because we didn't. There was most of those, like I said, most of the musicians I wasn't able to track with. They came in as they were available and did it however they needed to get it done. So I got to meet her there, and she
Okay.
was on promotional tour, and um, and yeah, another powerhouse voice. It's a wonderful voice, and she brought just fantastic energy, and it was just good to realize uh, the tunes with the actual singer when we had the opportunity to do that on the road. Because not taken away from Teddy or Tash at all, because man, Teddy drove that train. You know,
Mm,
um, they were the original Slash's blues ball.
yeah.
Teddy and Johnny. And whenever Tash was able, sang and spoke to the audience, people just lit up. But yeah, when you had the original singers who recorded it, it was even that much more special. So it was great to have her there, and so the memory would just be that setting, of being able to actually realize the tune, one of the songs we had recorded with the actual singer in that setting with the Brooklyn Bridge right behind me.
That was pretty special. When she came out, I was like, "Oh, Dorothy!" And another. I don't know why I'm guess naming dropping all the. I guess because I don't know. You know a lot of people that have been on the show. I asked her about that. She's like, "Yeah, I just happened to be in the city."
Yeah,
And I was
that's
like,
right.
it was just so cool. But you are right, Tash or Teddy, whoever handled vocals. Just what a full show. What a great time. I saw Kevin Moe open, ZZ Ward. So
Mhm.
it's probably too soon. And again, Slash is on such an interesting schedule now. Of course, Guns N' Roses are on tour,
That's
but
right.
it was
Miles Kennedy they will probably resume in 2026. So
yeah. So I mean,
they
was there any sort of?
album.
I mean, what? But was there any sort of? Hey, we'll pick this up at some point, or just like, hey, great summer. I'll see you around, or was there any sort of dot
Slash is
dot dot
really
dot?
he's positive. He's really positive about it. I think he's super sincere when he says he wants to do more. We just have to see when the window allows for it, and we'll all be ready.
Hey, I'll be ready. I sang the praises of the festival. I even wrote up a I don't do it so often because it just takes so much energy to write a review. It's one thing to do the podcast, but with this guy, it's like I can't sit and type. But I wrote an entire review of the show, and also of Orgy at the Damned. Both are glowing. They're up on afdpod.com, and I hope it continues. And I hope not just for just blues standards or great songs, some original stuff in there too. They're Metal Chestnut, I know, but it just
Right.
seems like another awesome Slash project with legs, and I'm really happy you're a part of it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, we were all overjoyed that I know the guys were, but that the window opened up again for to be able to do it at all. So, yeah, man, if we can do it again, all the better.
Yeah, no, right on. And I will. This was a good question. I don't know what I'll get from it because Jimmy, Neko. I said Nico. I'm terrible with
Yeah,
names.
no,
Uh,
no. I knew what you meant.
yeah, yeah. It's like
Which incidentally, that was also a wonderful project to work on, and I love that record, Mercy, we did, and that was Peter Cadis who did the Interpol records back in the day. Wonderful engineer. I mean, just it was a great experience working on that record with those guys back in the day, and still one of my favorite recordings too. That it just often gets missed, you know.
well, I hope people, obviously because the Guns N' Roses centered. If they're coming here for GNR, they explore more of your discography and all these albums that you're a part of. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention because Jimmy, he told his Velvet Revolver, audition story, and he wanted, in his vision, either Isaac Carpenter or you to be the drummer. I guess there was him and Matt didn't see eye to eye. Were you aware of that, for one?
Yeah, I mean, we used to talk all the time, and he was, I think Jimmy is fantastic. We met because I was with a band called Pleasure Club with a singer named James Hall, who was a wonderful singer-songwriter at the time out of New Orleans, who's influenced just about everybody out there and inspired more. But Jimmy was also a fan of James's, and we all got to come together because of James Hall and Pleasure Club. Um, but we did talk about it, and Jimmy tried. It's not, it wasn't without trying. I think both of us tried to find a good window to make this work, to make it work realistically, so that we could realize at least once what it would, what it might sound like if I was actually drumming with a record that I was on with the band that I recorded with, and we just couldn't make it work at the time. So um, it wasn't without Jimmy trying, though. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. But I guess that lends itself because he was talking about singing praises of both you and Isaac Carpenter. One final question. This comes from Missy. Just curious, did you try out at all for Guns N' Roses as a drummer? I'm not sure if they had a tryout there, or because Isaac seems to be Duff's guy, was Slash, you're Slash's guy. For lack of a better phrase, that
Yeah,
happened. Did that happen?
that never did happen. I think
Okay.
it was just sorted. I think there was probably a relationship that may have been longer with them. It was an easy transition. Maybe Isaac just was just perfect for it, and from what I've seen, he is perfect for it. He was a perfect move for that. And but no, I didn't get a
Okay.
call. I remember texting Slash even before all of that happened, and he sent me his response was, yeah, you know, we talked about something else, and then he said, I'll talk to you soon, like that. And then I saw the report about what
Hmm.
was happening. I was like, oh, is that what he meant? But to be honest, I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now. And look, you get a call. If you get a call, you cross that bridge when you get there, and you can think about it then. If I don't get the call, I don't think about it. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty content where I'm at, and I'm always constantly busy with music that I'm producing, music that I call unlistenable, but it makes me really happy.
As long as it makes you happy, that's the most important thing. And the best way for people to get up to date with you is Michael Jerome drums
No,
.com
Michael Jerome on drums.
on drums.
Yeah.
See, I can't say names. I can't read. How I've been a professional for like 20 plus years. I don't know. I can blame it on daddy brain, but I
Hey,
just,
man, you're a father. Nobody needs to know about Michael Jordan on drums. My God.
well, you can also follow Michael on Instagram, and when I post this, I'll have all the links in the summary and tag you and all the social media platforms and all that fun stuff. But Michael, this was really a pleasure to talk to you, and also so people don't think I'm even crazier, because I'm going to edit this after where it just says Michael for your Zoom name. It does
Cool.
say Michael Moore when you sign on. So when I
That's right.
saw that, it threw me for a loop. So people are like, "Why did you even say that?" I'm telling you, I over-explain things, Michael. I don't know. It's you'll come back.
Yeah,
We bond. This is how it
I like
happens,
Michael Moore too. I'm proud of my name. I'm proud of my name.
as you should
Let's
be.
do it.
Well, Michael, Jerome, thank you so much for your time, and I hope we get to do this again.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
You got it. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.